Hello everybody, my name is Chris Tackett. I'm the pianist with the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson, and it's my great pleasure to welcome you each week to our Baja 4 services like this. Stick around after the postlude, I'll tell you a little bit about the music I played today.
Welcome to this Baja 4 collaborative worship service. I'm Molly Anderson, a member of the Sky Island Unitarian Universalist Church in Sierra Vista. Whenever you are joining us, wherever you are worshiping from, you are welcome to bring your whole self here, now. We are the Baja 4, representing Unitarian Universalists across southeastern Arizona. As Unitarian Universalists, we love beyond belief and find inspiration from a wide array of spiritual, religious, and secular sources. We come together as a Baja 4 because we know we are stronger together. We represent Borderlands Unitarian Universalists in Amado, Sky Island Unitarian Universalist Church in Sierra Vista, Mountain Vista Unitarian Universalist Congregation in Northwest Tucson, and the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson on the east side. We take inspiration from the landscape around us. We find in our deserts stories of resilience and change, beauty and interconnection, death and life. We acknowledge that this land was stolen from the Chiricahua Apache, Pascua Yaqui, Autumn, Opata people, who are the indigenous ancestors of this land and our neighbors today. Please pause for a moment of gratitude for all the indigenous people who have stewarded this land for thousands of years and continue to do so today. It is our custom to light a chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, at the beginning of our service. If you have your own chalice at home, I invite you to light it with me now. You're about to hear the words of the Reverend Martin Luther King talking about the beloved community. The term beloved community was coined by the 20th century philosopher-theologian Josiah Royce. It referred to people of diverse races, ethnicities, social and educational classes, and gender identities living together in mutual respect and love in order to seek justice for all. The Reverend Martin Luther King said, "Our goal is to create a beloved community, and this will require a qualitative change in our souls as well as a quantitative change in our lives. Love is creative and redemptive. Love builds up and unites. Hate tears down and destroys. The aftermath of the fight with fire method is bitterness and chaos. The aftermath of the love method is reconciliation and the creation of the beloved community. Physical force can repress, restrain, coerce, destroy, but it cannot create and organize anything permanent. Only love can do that. Yes, love, which means understanding, creative, redemptive goodwill, even for one's enemies, is the solution to the race problem." In our service today, we will be discussing the proposed 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism, which says, "We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions."
A person can believe that they are a good Unitarian Universalist and follow the 7 principles without thinking or dealing about racism and other oppressions at the systemic level. UUs and the UUA have done good work in fighting racism, such as during the Civil Rights Movement of the 60s, and in 1997 passing a resolution to become an anti-racist, anti-oppression, multicultural organization. However, the UUA has just gone through a crisis related to inclusive hiring practices, especially related to whites being hired over highly qualified Latinx candidates, resulting in the resignation of the UUA president in 2017 and the creation of the Commission on Institutional Change. The eighth principle comes from a feeling that we need something to renew our commitment to this work, to hold ourselves accountable, and to fulfill the potential of our existing principles. The more congregations that adopt the 8th principle, the more likely it will be approved at the denominational level. We encourage each Baja 4 congregation to take up the question. Propose it to your Board of Trustees for consideration.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we'll walk hand in hand someday. We shall all be free. We shall all be free. We shall all be free someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall all be free someday. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace. We shall live in peace someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall live in peace someday.
This morning, I'd like to share a story with you called Wings by Christopher Myers. Look at that strange boy. Everyone from the neighborhood is pointing fingers and watching the sky. How does he do that? They stretch their necks and shake their heads. Icarus Jackson, a new boy on my block, is flying above the rooftops. He is swooping and diving, looping past people's windows and over the crowd. I don't think he's strange. Icarus Jackson, the flyboy, came to my school last Thursday. His long, strong, proud wings followed wherever he went. The whole school was staring eyes and wagging tongues. They whispered about his wings and his hair and his shoes, like they whisper about how quiet I am. Our teacher complained that the other kids couldn't help but gawk and stare. He said that Icarus's wings blocked the blackboard and made it hard for the students to pay attention. The teacher told Icarus to leave class until he could figure out what to do with his wings. He left the room quietly, dragging his feathers behind him. One boy snickered. At recess, the snicker grew into a giggle and spread across the playground. Soon, all the kids were laughing at Icarus Jackson's useless wings. I thought that if he flew just once, everyone would stop laughing. Icarus looked up, flapped his wings a couple of times, and jumped into the air. He swept through the schoolyard like a slow-motion instant replay. The other kids were not impressed. One girl grabbed the basketball. A boy stuffed the handball into his pocket. Somebody nagged. Nobody likes a show-off. Their words sent Icarus drifting into the sky, away from the glaring eyes and the pointing fingers. I waited for them to point at me as I watched Icarus float farther and farther away. Walking home from school, I knew how he felt, how lonely he must be. Maybe I should have said something to those mean kids. I ran through the streets with my eyes to the sky, searching the clouds for Icarus. He struggled to stay in the air. His wings drooped and his head hung low. He landed heavily on the edge of a building and sat with the pigeons. Pigeons don't make fun of people. A policeman passing by blew his whistle. "You with the wings, come down from there. Stay yourself on the ground. You'll get in trouble. You'll get hurt." It seemed to me Icarus was already in trouble and hurt. Could the policeman put him in jail just for flying? For being too different? When the neighborhood kids saw the policeman yelling at him, they exploded with laughter. Icarus dropped to the ground. "Stop," I cried. "Leave him alone." And they did. I called to Icarus and he sailed closer to me. I told him that someone should have told him long ago, "Your flying is beautiful." For the first time, I saw Icarus smile. At that moment, I forgot about the kids who had laughed at him and me. I was just glad that Icarus had found his wings again. "Look at that amazing boy," I called to all the people on the street as I pointed to my new friend Icarus, swirling through the sky.
We have two readings today. The first is from the Reverend Dr. Natalie Finnemore, the Minister of Lifespan Religious Education at the UU congregation at Shelter Rock in Manhasset, New York. Shirley Chisholm was asked why she, a Black woman, was running for president. "You don't have a chance. Why are you doing that?" And she said, "Because I am in love with the America that does not yet exist." And that's how Unitarian Universalism is also. I am in love with the Unitarian Universalism that does not yet exist. But I have to hold both the love for that thing and the love for the reality. It does not yet exist. It probably will not exist in my lifetime. I don't think it will in that of my children, but I can't deny my love for it. You know, wanting to be there in that struggle, that's why I'm fighting. Our second reading is from Jonna Lou Johnstone, the program minister of the First Unitarian Church of Oklahoma City. We shall overcome. When we can truly celebrate the diversity of contributions and talents offered by all people, we shall overcome hatred and prejudice and oppression. When we can truly extend our hands to one another in loving acceptance, we shall overcome the past that haunts us now. Living in peace and freedom, we shall overcome the wrongs that have happened and the debts left unpaid. Let us join together in that commitment to overcome. Let us say together, Amen.
Love is love is love is love. Love is love is love is love. Oh, love is love is love is love. Oh, love is love is love is love.
I'm Bob Gordon, and I'm a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Tucson. Today is my 77th birthday, and I want to tell you a little bit about my 70-plus year journey with race and racism. My parents were well-meaning liberals of their time. They taught us, as they put it, not to be prejudiced against anyone for something they couldn't help, and not to use derogatory terms to describe black people. They thought Lena Horne was beautiful, adding that she almost looked white, and they admired Ed Brooke, the first African American to serve in the U.S. Senate, saying that he didn't even sound like a black person. In my first grade class in 1949, there were 3 black children. Walter, Leona, and Jimmy wore old clothes, were all seated together at the back of the room by our white teacher, and rarely participated. They were gone the next year. No more children of color until high school, when there were 3 African Americans out of 2,400 plus students. At 17, I enrolled in a course to become a certified Red Cross lifeguard. When it came time to pair up for learning rescuing techniques, which would require close physical contact with our partners, it appeared that no one was going to choose Walter, the only black person in the class. I was very apprehensive, but I volunteered because I thought there was no valid reason not to work with Walter, and I didn't want him to be the only person without a partner. In college one semester I had a black roommate, but purposely never told my parents that Carl was black because I thought that wasn't important. I later learned that by erasing his color, I was erasing a very important part of his identity. Thinking I could teach my parents something, I wanted them to be uncomfortable when they found out. And they were. In our late 20s, my then wife and I, wanting more than 2 children, but not wanting to produce more than 2 biologically, chose to adopt. As we already had a son, we told the agency that we wanted a girl, but didn't care about her race or ethnicity. Our daughter is part Mexican American, part Native American, a person of color. She has heard the racist comment, "What are you, anyway?" countless times. A few months ago, she was walking in her neighborhood when a passing car slowed down and a white man yelled out the window, "Go back to whatever country you came from." She was born in Iowa. Anticipating a negative reaction from my in-laws, we chose not to tell them about her racial background, but just sent a picture instead. Their reaction was that they couldn't understand why we wanted to adopt at all, and especially, in their words, a child like that. They added that they weren't sure they would be able to love her the same as our other children. After all, they said, my wife and I had what they called good blood. In my workplaces over 30 plus years, 4 institutions of higher education and 1 secondary school, I had some students of color, but almost no colleagues of color. I've been affiliated with 7 UU churches or fellowships in 6 states in the past 60 years. Some had a few members of color, others none. So that's where I was in 1992. At home, at work, at school, at church, from the media, I had learned that discussions of race in the United States generally referred to people of color. To be honest, I had never thought about my own racial identity, the ultimate white privilege. That's where I was on this journey when my boss asked me to attend a week-long diversity training workshop in the summer of 1992. There I would learn to facilitate a year-long seminar for my colleagues. The program, called SEED, Seeking Educational Equity and Diversity, was started and at that time directed by Peggy McIntosh at Wellesley College. I date my real awakening from that experience onward. Peggy was already known for her work with male privilege and also white privilege, terms I had never heard before. I learned that just as all men have male privilege, all white people have white privilege. Whether we know it or not, whether we overtly discriminate or not, and whether we want this privilege or not, we have it. Not through any individual merit, but because we are white. For example, when I've been pulled over by the police, I never wondered if it was because I was white. Once I went to see an apartment that had been advertised, and the landlord told me it was already rented. I didn't wonder if it was because I was white. I came to understand that racism is so embedded in our institutions, schools, places of worship, the media, the government, the arts, that we cannot help but absorb its rules, spoken or not. I also learned that blame, shame, and guilt have no useful place in our work to dismantle systems of oppression. I learned, too, that in some ways I'm racist. Or to say it another way, I engage in racist behavior or have racist reactions. One example I'm aware of and that I'm still working to overcome completely is that if I'm walking down a street and see one or more black men approaching, I feel some anxiety. In the past, I would sometimes cross the street, which I no longer do. I don't blame or shame myself for these reactions. I was carefully taught, and I was a good student. But I can work to get rid of this poison in myself and other white people. In 2017, my husband Steve went to a Mosaic Makers National Conference in San Diego, sponsored by the Unitarian Universalist Association. He came back talking about white supremacy culture. I said, white privilege? Yes. But white supremacy? Nah, that's too much. Not me. However, after many conversations and some reading, I've come to understand that while I am not a white supremacist, that is, I don't believe in the supremacy of the white race, I do live in a white supremacy culture. I'm a product of it, and I have embodied and exhibited some of its characteristics. One of these is that I fear open conflict, so that when someone raises an issue that causes me discomfort, I often blame the person for raising the issue rather than look at the issue itself. Another common one is equating individual acts of unfairness or bias against white people with the systemic racism that targets people of color. And sometimes when facing change, it's easy for me to engage in either-or thinking, yet another characteristic of white supremacy culture. My latest learning edge is acknowledging anti-blackness in myself and my community. One example is that the U.S. has benefited from the exploitation of black labor since its founding. Another is that the culture of assimilation rewards blacks for acting, looking, and sounding more like white dominant culture. So those are some highlights of this white man's journey through the difficult and often painful terrain of race and racism in this country. This is where I find myself today. And while I don't expect to ever arrive at the end of this road, I do intend to keep on learning and changing for the rest of my life. This is a journey that I hope we are all on, though we're each at a different place along the road. Wherever we are, there are things to learn. So join me, fellow travelers.
Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. Never turning back. Sigamos adelante, siempre adelante, siempre adelante, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. Amaremos con pasión. Siempre con pasión. Siempre con pasión, sin volver atrás, sin volver atrás. Gonna Gonna reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Reach across our borders. Never turning back. Never turning back. Y vamos sin fronteras. Siempre sin fronteras. Siempre sin fronteras. Sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás. Gonna reunite the family. Reunite the family. Reunite the family. Never turning back. Never turning back. Familias reunidas. Siempre reunidas. Siempre reunidas. Sin volver atrás. Sin volver atrás. Gonna keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Keep on moving forward. Never turning back. 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 Never turning back.
In the words of the Pat Humphrey song that we just sang, we are never turning back. So I want to suggest something that may help us to move forward. Beloved Conversations is a program developed at UU Meadville Lombard Seminary, which helps participants learn how race and ethnicity shape their personal and congregational lives and practices. Since it began 9 years ago, over 150 congregations have taken part, reporting very positive outcomes. Beloved Conversations Virtual will be available online this fall. Individuals may register beginning September 1st. The more people that participate in each congregation, the more transformative it can be. There's a 20% discount if 20 or more of us register as part of the Baja 4 cluster. Scholarships are also available. As of now, about 17 members and staff of UUCT plan to participate. You can get more information at racialjustice@uuctucson.org.
As we extinguish our chalice, listen to the words of Andrea Hawkins Camper, Editor-in-Chief at Soulfire, a Unitarian Universalist ministry. Be about the work. May we see all as it is, and may it all be as we see it. May we be the ones to make it as it should be, for if not us, who? If not now, when? This is answering the cry of justice with the work of peace. This is redeeming the pain of history with the grace of wisdom. This is the work we are called to do, and this is the call we answer now, to be the barrier and the bridge, to be the living embodiment of our principles, to be about the work of community, building the beloved community, to be a people of intention and a people of conscience.
Take the A train, supposedly the quickest way to get to Harlem from Penn Station. In about 1938-39, young Billy Strayhorn had pushed into a dressing room in his hometown of Pittsburgh and to meet his idol, Duke Ellington. Billy played some of his pieces for Mr. Ellington, and Mr. Ellington was suitably impressed and invited Billy to come and visit him at his mansion in New York City, in Harlem, the next time he was there. And a couple weeks later, sure enough, Mr. Strayhorn took the train into Penn Station in New York City and rode the subway, the A train, all the way from Penn Station to Harlem. Or so the story goes. We're not sure if there's any real truth in that story, but man, it makes a nice story. The opening piece was Come Sunday, one of the sequences from Black, Brown, and Beige, about 1944. Black, Brown, and Beige, a tone parallel to the history of the American Negro, was the full title of the very large piece that Ellington premiered at Carnegie Hall that year. Most famously, it was recorded in the 60s with Mahalia Jackson singing the lyric. Thank you so much.